Welcome back, everybody. We are starting a new series here. This is going to be the first 4 chapters in the journey of a new firearms owner. So imagine you don't even have a firearm yet, but you are planning to do it. You've decided that you want to have a handgun, which will help you in protecting your home and yourself, right? It's a self-defense handgun. This is the journey that you're seeking, you're set out to do. And for argument's sake, let's presume that this is a 9mm handgun, okay? But we're going to be talking about the first things you're going to need to do before your first trip to the range, really. The first things that are needed that you must invest in, really. We're talking about money here. You need to invest in these things before you're going to the range. So first of all, you're going to need ear protection, okay? Now, simple enough, I don't want to over elaborate on this, but you can just get foamies, right? You can get the little things stick in your ears, and technically that's ear protection. But if you want to learn how to shoot a gun, you should probably learn with another human. You want to communicate with them properly, and so having electronic ear pro is going to help you. So here is a set of Walker razors. This is, I would call this medium quality, okay? It's not bottom of the barrel as far as ear pro, but it's probably the cheapest electronic ear pro that you can get into. So as we can see here, we've got a little microphone on the side, and that is going to take the sound that you hear and re-amplify it into your headset. Most of the time, that's going to be a direct feed, and you'll get to hear everything around you. And then once the sound is too high, it is above, I think above 95 or 100 decibels, then it shuts off the amplification, and then the hearing protection is always there. Let's say that you can get these for $40, maybe $45, but I've got $40 on here on the list. So this is what you should get for ear pro. What you should not get, at least not yet, is a set of these. Now these are very cool. These are also electronic ear pro. They fit into your ear, and there's an app that you connect. It's Bluetooth. There's a lot of things you can do with these. And these aren't even the best ones, right? But you could easily waste over $100 on these and then have not as much money for ammo, for example. So don't buy these right away, but get a set of over-the-ear electronic ear pro so you can protect your hearing and you can communicate effectively. It's really easy for people to skip these things. We want to make sure we're being wise about it in this journey, this first chapter in the journey, right? So eye protection, this happens to be the same brand, Walker's. And these are, okay, so these are amber, that's right. But you do not want fully tinted ones. Let's see here. I'll show you what not to get, and I'll show you what to get. Don't get fully tinted ones. You do not need sunglasses because most of your shooting will probably be indoors. Also, these are Magpul brand. Now these do happen to be cheap. These are only $30, I think, but normally they're like $80. There's plenty of these you could spend a lot more money on, but don't feel like you need to have tinted glasses. You should go with clear ones. These are still $25, $30. You could go even cheaper than that. If you work in any type of industry, you probably have access to safety glasses, eye pro, and you can use those as well. That's not bad. Next, you're going to need training ammunition. Training ammo, here we have some Blazer Brass. This is, so it's 5 boxes, that's 250 rounds, and I believe that 250 is what you should start with for your first investment into going to the range. Now you can show up to a range and you can buy ammo there. You will pay too much, and they might actually try to sell you some things that aren't going to help you, okay? What you're going to want is something that is consistent. Blazer Brass, simple enough. 124 grain or 115 grain is still very good. I happen to prefer 124 grain, but I think I paid, let's take a look. I think I got a price on here. Here we go. So May of last year, I paid 22 cents a round for this. 250 rounds of 120, well, of something consistent. 25 cents a round is a good price. You can get that most places if you shop around. We were just at Fleet Farm earlier today, and I think it was about 22.5 cents a round off the shelf for 124 and 115 grain. This is good. Don't let anyone tell you that this is junk. Blazer brass is good enough for what we're doing here, okay? And back to the point of different types of ammo. Here's another type. This is 124 grain. This is by Ammo Inc. And again, avoid some of these buzzwords. Here it says military/law enforcement training ammunition. This does not help you. This is not making things better for you, okay? Now 124 isn't a bad grain weight, but there's no need to get any of this extra. None of this is helping. Now you'll notice, if you're familiar with velocities, 1220 is faster than normal. This is a little bit higher, spicier stuff. There's no point in getting any of this to train with, especially to begin with. Start with the simple, again, start with something simple. 124 grain blazer brass or 115 is very, very good. The last reason for that is that if you have some type of ammo which is a little bit more exotic, for lack of a better term, you might be having malfunctions with your firearm, and you won't know if you can rule out the ammunition yet, because there's a lot of things that can cause malfunctions, especially with a new shooter shooting a new gun. The gun might be actually not working properly. There might be a reason for that. The shooter might be having problems shooting. Okay, you might have a variety of things that you could be doing wrong while shooting. And even the magazines. Sometimes you get bad magazines, and that could contribute to it. So just reduce the variability and get factory ammo, but don't overspend on it, okay? Next, you're gonna need targets. So we can see here, now this is just straight from Fleet Farm. And the specific thing about this is that these are silhouette, they're splatter targets. I would call this half-size silhouette, meaning this is like, well, I guess half the size, or in this case, most the size of a human, right? That's about the size of me, I guess, kind of. But this is a good enough target for you to shoot at. I'll show you what is not a particularly good target to shoot at. This is not going to help you. Now, this is kind of the same size, but this type of target here, this is for zeroing in a rifle. Okay, this is kind of a multi-purpose target, but there's inches on here, or I guess, yeah. There's gradient marks on here which are going to help you zero in an optic, and that's not what we're doing. We're just trying to get rounds on paper, and because it's a splatter type target, you will be able to see, you have a better idea. You can see the results. Now, lastly, you can also just take a piece of paper. Okay, you have some scratch paper at home, 8.5 by 11. This is not bad. If you set this at 7 yards and you shoot 2 mags into this, and they're all hitting, and you're shooting fairly rapidly or whatever, you're doing fine. That's good. You're doing well enough. Sometimes people actually use this size paper to take their concealed carry testing, I guess, shooting test. This is reasonable. And then, if you're trying to be more precise, once you're getting them all on this paper, then the next thing on the list here is a marker. Simple. You put a dot, and you shoot at that dot, and you see how close to the dot. Or you can even just put a circle around here and shoot at that dot. But don't try to get hung up on these trying to get everything right in here, okay? That is not necessarily the first place to start with your firearms, with shooting a handgun. And then the last thing that's on here, minor accessories. So I have a marker. We got stapler. Stapler is a stapler, right? I fully endorse and am paid very much by Stanley to say this. No, of course I'm not. We have some masking tape. Good enough. This stuff works well on just cardboard or whatever, but you could put this on top of a white piece of paper if you needed to. For black targets, use a black marker, mark them off, okay? And then with gloves. Now these look kind of tactical, okay? They're tactical color, whatever. These were just $13. Okay, I got a good deal on them, whatever. Why do you need gloves if you're going to the range? Well, if you're going to the range outdoors, it might not be as warm or as cold as you want it to be. And if it's cooler than you want it to be, you're going to want to keep your hands warm just to maintain the dexterity. As you're learning, you don't want to have additional variability, like I said, additional variables. So having gloves to keep your hands warm, having gloves to keep your hands protected to some extent. Depending on the gun that you get, you might actually get some chafing or some type of, irritation, whatever it is, from the guns, the grip of the gun. So having gloves is not bad. If it means that you can train longer, then more effectively, then you should have some gloves. So to wrap up, I'll put it up on the side here, but like Ear Pro, about $40. Eye Pro, you should spend about $20 roughly. Training ammunition, like I said, about 250 rounds. You can get them for 25 cents a round. Math on that is $175. Wow, non-professional editor here, finally putting the finishing touches on this video nearly a month after filming it. 250 rounds of ammo at 25 cents per round is definitely not $175. It is $62.50 if you did the math on that. If we're still going with that same budget, for one, you could just save the money and you spend less than $300 if you're going to get that much ammo at that price. Secondly, you could buy more ammo with that same $175 allocated towards it. Or thirdly, you can split up the money elsewhere. Still spend the $300 overall, but you can spend a little bit more on ear protection, eye protection, maybe a little more on targets. Or once we get to the end of the video here, you'll see what I mean, but spending extra money on that generous friend of yours who is willing to take you to the range. So, all right, that's enough of me talking in your ear. Back to the video. Targets, about $15, maybe less. So I think this is 8. Yep, it's 8 targets for maybe $12 or $15. I don't know what it was. And if you were consistent and careful in your shooting, even just at an indoor range, and you shot this target 8 times, like put up new targets, you could learn a lot from that. You could really do well to train that way. But don't waste money. Don't get bad targets. Get decent enough targets that are going to help you get the right ones. Then minor accessories, these you should have at home. I've got $0 under this column. A stapler, a Sharpie, like I said, tape. You should have that stuff laying around. And then, of course, other things that you will need to have for the range, drinks, snacks, whatever that is, so that you can focus on the training and you're not too distracted by it, okay? I guess, a side note, I would encourage you to go to a range which does have a restroom or be comfortable using the restroom outdoors at an unmanned range, outdoor range, whatever that is. So, and lastly, we did not talk about guns yet. And the reason for that is because you don't need a gun for this. Now that sounds strange, but you can go to your first range trip, in a lot of cases, without having a gun. I want to be clear that you should invest in these things. You should spend the money to have these if you think you're going to go down this journey. But if you spent all of this, you really only spent $250. Now, where does that line up in your budget? That's not for me to say. But if you're planning on going down this path of having a defensive handgun, you're probably going to spend less than $2,000, but not much less than that. By the end of this series, we'll see what all of this adds up to cost. And so $250 for this should happen. You should spend the money to have these things so that you can train. And like I said, lastly, you don't need a firearm. The way to do that, to learn, is to have a friend who has firearms. Now that's easier said than done, right? But it is common for you to try something out. You want to try out different firearms before you fully invest in it. Fortunately, we still have YouTube. Okay, you're watching on YouTube, probably, maybe Rumble. Hey, go check out Rumble. If you're watching on YouTube, check the Rumble also. But we can learn so much online about firearms, but if it is our first firearm, we need to have a gun in our hand and we need to figure it out. We need to Just know how much tension does that actually take to rack it? How difficult is it to load magazines? A lot of things which we can't do just by watching a video. So invest in this, then find a friend who's willing to share a firearm in the right category with you that you can train with. And then, and of course, lastly, you can rent guns at ranges. In town, in Fargo here, we do have a range which rents guns. I have done that a good number of times when I'm testing out new firearms which I just haven't shot yet. And so it isn't particularly expensive, but you need to be ready for that investment. If you're trying to decide which gun is for you, you're going to have to spend some money to do that. I think it's really fortunate for all of us that the firearms community is so generous in a lot of ways, especially to new shooters. We really want to be generous to new shooters, giving them options, explaining things to them, loaning them guns. Obviously, I did a video on the friend gun. I guess here you go. Go click this thing right there. But the friend gun is for a variety of reasons, and this could be one of those reasons. All of this, before you even get a gun, you borrow one from a friend, you rent one at the range, and this can help you start on that journey of shooting a handgun. So that was the first chapter in the journey of a new firearms owner. And again, no gun yet. So the second chapter, second video, will be where we pick out a gun and the things that you must have when you first take that gun to the range. All right, that's it for now.